Hi, everyone. This is Mary Kurek with Frontrunners Innovate, and I am just blessed today to have with me Sonita Mbah, and she is with Ecovillages. She's an expert on ecovillages, and we really want to find out more about that and how it involves the environment, the climate, planet greening, the whole ball of wax, and also how it involves economic development and how it fixes some of the problems that communities have. With me as a co-host is Prince Omenihu, and Prince is in Nigeria. And I'm going to let him introduce himself in a minute because he does a better job than I do. But he is just a young leader that I have come to embrace as somebody that we want to try to put some supports under and help him do all the wonderful things that he's doing to create impact out there. And we have getting ready to join us, we hope, here in just a second, Emma Ochieng. And Emma is in Kenya, and Emma is an outspoken advocate for, there we go, there's Emma, for climate change and climate action. She is a student in Kenya. There you are, Emma. And she's finishing up her last year is in finance and hopes to move her skills into, spaces that are going to create impact, once she gets out of college. So she is also a co-host here with me. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Sonita sharing a bit about herself, doing a little better job of introducing herself than I did because we have so many people to introduce today. And then we'll kind of move around virtually around the room and let everybody introduce themselves. And then we're going to ask some questions of you. So Sonita, we're going to start with you. So why don't you create an introduction here and then we'll move forward.
Thank you so much, Mary. Yes, so my name, as Mary already said, is Sonita Mbah, and I come from Cameroon. And I am very, very passionate about seeing young people in their potential, manifesting the most of themselves, especially African young people. And with this passion, I go into nature, I explore what nature has to offer, and I use the dynamism of nature to explore systems. So this is like where I come from, and I have a background in literature, but I have worked for a couple of years, say 10 years now, in the field of development, mainly around permaculture and ecovillages. And right now I am a permaculture designer and fascinated by the beauty that nature can give. And working with several communities and ecovillages and global ecovillage networks and movements across the world, in implementing transitioning communities to ecovillages and creating also demonstration sites in different African countries. So I am really, really honored to be here with you all. I think just one last thing, I won an award a couple of years ago, and I feel very deeply grateful for this. And this is the Gender Just Climate Solutions Award, for the work that I did for many years with women in Cameroon around creating rocket stoves. And rocket stoves, they are these earth cook stoves, that empowers women and enables them to participate more in decision-making processes in their communities. But how does women cooking faster and participate in leadership position, how does all that come together with climate change? Well, you tell me. Some magic sometimes happens in the process of working with communities, and that's one of them, definitely.
Fantastic. For the sake of the audience, I don't know if Emma and Prince might know what the word permaculture means, but I would like for the audience to be able to know it. Will you explain what that is?
Okay, so permaculture is, the word itself is new, but the concept is not. It's been living with indigenous communities, generations for a very long time, especially with traditional African communities. And this is just the traditional way of farming, imitating nature. And when the word was coined, it said it's permanent culture, permanent agriculture. But of course, culture is not permanent, yeah? So this is what we're going to explore today.
Oh, awesome. piquing our interest. Thank you, Sonita. Prince, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Oh, you're on mute. Here we go.
That's really an interesting an area you're working on. My name is Prince Omenihu from Nigeria. I run a nonprofit called Caring Beyond Borders Foundation, which is basically into youth empowerment and development. And we also give care and support to orphans and vulnerable children. Likewise, we'll use platforms like sports, entertainment, to engage them, to discover their potential. And also you see how we can continue to support them to develop themselves and become self-reliant. And also belong to, I'm a policy fellow of the Nigerian Global Affairs Council, which is also a policy think tank that, policy simplification and policy making. We look into that in Nigeria and see how we can support government in drafting policies that will be of better standard and improvement in the economy and development of its citizens. So that's what I basically do.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Prince. Emma, if you'll take yourself off mute and do a little intro, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Mary. It's a pleasure to be here today, together with Prince and Sonita. I think, Sonita, you're doing a great job, especially with regards to permaculture. I've heard of the word, but I really didn't know what it meant. And it's great that you've explained it. And I'd even love to know more from you with regards to what you do. It's amazing the work that you did to empower women back from where you came from. And I think you totally deserve that award. So I'm looking forward to how this conversation is going to go, and hopefully you are going to interact. My name is Ochieng. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, and I also have an interest in conservation and sustainability. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, she's a student finishing up, as I mentioned, her last year, I believe it is, in finance in Kenya, and very much an advocate and outspoken one on climate and planet greening and that sort of thing. So this is right up her alley. This is perfect. So I'm going to start with Sonita, and then I'm going to invite our panel hosts to ask questions. But Sonita, give us a little bit of your background, if you will. What brought you into the work that you're doing here?
Okay, this is always a tricky one. So first of all, as a young person growing in Cameroon, but also growing in Africa, I realized that I was not contented with agriculture, and so many other young people I was schooling with in university and not contented with agriculture because it did not make our parents rich. Our parents worked so hard. My parents are agriculturalists, and they worked so hard for so many years, but they never became rich. And as young people, we were super ambitious to do something, to get money, to be financially resilient. And so then the question was, what is it really that young people can do to change this apathy for agriculture? And to be more interested in agriculture and to find out what really is there, because agriculture is the future for Africa. I know it, but how can we get more young people involved? And this is where my passion came. And I started working with young people in different schools, working on environmental education in kindergartens, but also in secondary schools. Just to understand more about the environment and conservation, but also teach a little bit about biodiversity conservation, and get more involved in national level policy on biodiversity conservation in Cameroon. And then to understand, therefore, that what young people in Cameroon and most African countries really want is technology, and that young people are fascinated by technology. But then how can we bring technology and agriculture together? And this is where I came into permaculture, because the two kind of go very well together. And permaculture deals a lot with adaptive technologies that work then with the environment and in alignment with the environment. So this is where I came alive into this field.
That's fantastic. Bring us up to the point where you got involved in the first Ecovillage project.
So I started volunteering and doing a lot of work, a lot of community supported agriculture work in Cameroon, especially in the main city of the capital city, Yaoundé, because this is where I was studying. Because my uncle had made me understand that when I would graduate from the university, I would be part of 10,000 other students who would graduate the same year, and we would all not have access to any job. So I shouldn't lie to myself. So I should start realizing that there is something extra outside of the university. And then I started volunteering, therefore, for different non-profit institutions and working, as I said before, with different young people and also with schools. And this is how I got into an organization called Better World Cameroon. And Better World Cameroon had an office in the capital city in Yaoundé. And when I finished, therefore, my bachelor's degree, they decided to employ me and to work with starting an eco-village in the northwest region of the country. And so this is how it all started, like magic, in 2012. And so we drove down to the northwest region and we saw the land, and we bought a piece of land and we started to create beauty, to manifest beauty on a 5-hectare piece of land. And this place is called Bafut. This is quite north, quite close to Nigeria, also south area of Nigeria. And in Bafut, therefore, we first of all, you acquire land, or because eco-villages are part of either in transition or they are traditional communities. For example, in Africa, you have a existing traditional community, or you create a new community. And so in this case, we had an existing traditional community, and then we wanted to transition 54 communities. And so this was like an eco municipality, if you may call it. And we needed to create, therefore, a demonstration site. And demonstration sites, therefore, they act as agents of multiplication. So to try out new technologies, new techniques, which therefore we would be able to enroll into the different 54 communities. And this was the purpose, therefore, of the land. And we named it the Ndani for Permaculture Ecovillage Demonstration Site. And that was the genesis of a transitioning work for 54 communities.
So, wow, that's interesting. And I have like tons of questions, but I'm sure the two of the two of these, Prince and Emma, might have also some questions. Who has the next question?
Okay. Okay, let me do a quick one.
Go ahead.
Sonita, that's so wonderful. What I want to know is, what are the challenges you've been able to face earlier on, and how have you been able to, overcome them? Or what are still the challenges you're still seeing that you think you can, attract people to look into it and help build a widespread, or probably, make it much more on an easier way for more young people to come into permaculture?
Wow, interesting. So first of all, just as a young person and as a young woman, it's not easy to delve into communities and start to do work there. And so first of all, the first challenge I would say I faced was that almost everything had a European standard. So it was either a European or a Western standard. So a lot of stuff was existing. Permaculture was existing. Eco-village movements were existing, but it was a European standard. And so the first challenge was to shift that standard a little bit and to adapt it to the African reality, to the Cameroonian realities. And to immediately to start by saying that these standards don't work in Africa. And that most of such educational processes are created from a European Western centric perspective that do not fit in Africa. And therefore, this is the challenge of starting a new journey of recreating regenerative processes that are for Africans by Africans. And this is a very challenging process because you have to do everything all over and starting to learn from the communities and what the communities have done for generations that then fit into such concepts. So this was the first thing. The second challenge is that working with communities and 54 communities, as I've just mentioned, is that there exist tensions, there exist tension lines, and what, for example, the Millennium Development Goals and the SDGs do not prioritize is culture. And that when you step into communities, the first thing that I was confronted with is the culture of the people, my culture, the culture of Cameroonians, and that this is the basis of community. This is the basis of life in community. And that I need to relearn this and to unlearn everything else about culture I knew before, and to learn about these processes, but also the processes of spirituality within community. This is not about religion. This is not about Christianity. This is about ancestral beliefs of incantations and processes that communities believe in. They work with these processes. They work with nature, systems that have been created for many years. And this I needed to unlearn and relearn because without that, it's impossible to work with the people. And also, I think another challenge is that definitely we live in tough patriarchal systems across the world, and gender plays a critical role in working with permaculture, eco-villages, or in communities in whatever regards. And that as a young person and a young woman daring into such a field, that I had a lot of blockages in the system from traditional men, but also from customs, existing customs within our traditions. For example, just I am not allowed as a woman, as a young woman, to talk to certain people within communities. I am not allowed as a young woman to cross my legs in front of older men or people who are much older than I am. At the time, I saw crossing my leg as a moment of comfort. I mean, right now I'm crossing my leg, so, but this was not possible according to the customs. I could not just sit in a way that I felt comfortable. But also that the decision-making processes are slightly different and are not so flexible for women, especially for young women. And so I need to take new leaps of change. I need to adapt my own my own sense of interaction and to be more flexible to these different processes, where if we really want to do something about climate change and to use permaculture to combat climate change, we have to do that from the standpoint of where the people are, where are they right now, and to jump on the boat from there and to take on. And definitely these were my challenges, and using permaculture to overcome this is another story. But as you may already tell, I changed a lot in that process because these are life-changing experiences. It's something that it's invaluable because personally I go through these processes and I learn from them every day. But this shapes the work that I do, and it shapes who I am, therefore, and how I bring myself in the world. They did not only shape my work, but they also ground me, because again, this is my culture. They root my feet into the earth, and I could feel the warmth of the earth and everything that came up into me, and I felt much stronger and very rooted. But also that I could use the techniques of permaculture and the systems change that permaculture practices, because just to give a bit of context here, permaculture is really about designing systems. And because the people in local communities, in this case in Cameroon, are very familiar with working with community alternative processes, but somehow these systems, they have a challenge transferring the knowledge to young people. So there's also this divide between the older and the younger generation, where the older generation is doing a lot of amazing work, but that work is just not going over to the younger generation. Because either of lack of tools and mechanisms for this transfer of knowledge and the bridging, or that young people are just not finding interest in how the older generation is approaching the things that they are interested in. And so one thing with design and systems design with permaculture is that you have a pattern, and a pattern is something that it's in a philosophical way. You know, a pattern is something that is either existent in nature or in humans, and it's there. It has a life cycle, or it has a way that it manifests. And when we use such patterns and we identify in nature those patterns, but also we can identify in communities and systems these patterns, then we can correlate those patterns with each other. And so therefore, in design terms, we can create new systems out of older structures that are more resilient to the current generation. And therefore, this is the knowledge that is a bit was missing slightly in community development, where the older generation have the practices, but they need this transfer mechanisms to bring this knowledge then forward. And this, for me, I find it really fascinating, bringing those techniques in, learning from the people, and then using that to showcase what we can do going forward.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, take a breath. Emma, do you? You're only generating more questions in my mind. So, Emma, do you have anything to share? It's just you will. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you, Sonita, for sharing the challenges that you faced and how you've been able to overcome them. My question will be with regards to what type of incentives can be put in place so as to make agriculture more lucrative to young people, because as you said, young people see agriculture as something that's, I don't know, dirty work, because you actually have to use your hands to use those tools, the various tools and stuff like that. But what incentives can be put in place so as to make agriculture more lucrative to young people?
Yes, agriculture is a laborious job. And of course, we need young people because they're the labor force. Um, and so I think, first of all, we need to shift the mindset a little bit. Agriculture is not as nasty as we imagine it, because we could make it more exciting. I think one of the incentives that we could use is technology, as I said already in the beginning. And technology could mean mobile technology, but also apps, in a way that could make permaculture in a way more accessible. Right now, there are courses on permaculture, but they're super expensive. And young people in Africa, of course, cannot just afford this. But if it's on an app, for example, and they can access this, then this would be, I think this is more interesting. But also that if young people have platforms, technological platforms, where they can exchange knowledge, make an input about something, and then get feedback, but also have like a support system created with a technical tool, because working in community with communities and doing permaculture, agriculture, whatever it is, there's so many challenges that come, and Africa is so dynamic and things are changing all the time. So there's very tough skills of adaptability is required to match with the current, with the changes, the constant changes. I mean, these changes also come with political structures and social structures, economic structures. And when these systems are constantly changing, it's very, very difficult for young people to do business per se. And so therefore, if there are possible exchange platforms where other young people could learn from each other and to say, what did you do? How did it work? And what were the learnings? And somebody else could use the same processes. But also such platforms could host solutions. So young people could upload solutions. Like if I did something really incredible and I want other people to learn from it, so I make a one pager of, say, describe what that solution might look like in practical terms, how somebody else in another African country could implement it, because we have similar climates and similar conditions. These solutions could aid lots of people to find it much easier to handle consistent changes. I also think there's a lot of education needed. Of course, money is needed, but I definitely think that we need the right mindset and the right knowledge to be able to do it. And because permaculture also comes with this package of philosophical perspectives and how to map things, and but thinking patterns. And I think that it's important that there is educational centers. It could be mainstreaming such kind of knowledge within our existing school systems, that it's possible then to have permaculture taught in a way within universities or training centers. But also would be nice then to have some maybe some investors. It could be impact investors who are interested in such alternative agriculture practices and would be excited to support young people who are already in that field to do the best that they can, because definitely the money is in the end very, very essential for the practices to actually happen, because young people need that financial support, that financial backing to be able to withstand those pressures. So yeah, definitely technology, education, and the financial resources. Yeah.
That's a lot of good information. You made me think about a couple of resources, one a story and one a resource, and I put it up there for everybody. It's somebody that we've interviewed here, farmingacademy.eu, and the woman is out of, I want to say it's Norway or New Zealand, somewhere like that. I cannot remember specifically, but she is a farmer herself, and so she's starting this platform, and the trainings are in different, whether it's agriculture training or it's animal farming and that sort of thing, are very inexpensive. We're talking like maybe $5 US. So, and she's got some really excellent lecturers, and it's all online stuff. So that could be a resource for you. But, you made me think about when you're to excite young people and how technology can enter into farming. Because I always wondered, how do you, other than, some really basic things that we've seen on television, how do you do that? Well, I was interviewing a gal out of Israel, and I think she's with an impact fund. So I'm going to see about connecting you guys. But she said that they were working with, she gave me an example, they were working with a group of ranchers at one point, that they were using drones to count and herd cattle, and that the counting and the herding cattle by drone, with them sitting back at the ranch with nothing but an app or, in front of their laptop, was doing a better job than the dogs and them on horses could do. So, but, because it's really important to count your cattle and to know, where they're going, what's going on, who's in this pasture, who's in that, and, being able to keep track and then herd. And the drones in the sky were moving the cattle and counting them as they were moving. And of course, they could see everything that was going on from sitting in front of their laptop. And I'm thinking, well, there's a good example of how technology is working, and even better for these ranchers, because then it allowed them more freedom to do some other things that were important. And then they started adding on to their ranches in other areas. So they owned more than one ranch. and we're able to kind of keep track of everything. So it's really interesting how you can get to that point of technology and understand how that would really excite some people, because it's not just technology, it's technology with an extreme function that allows you to have more profitability and not just take something off your plate to do, like a robot or something, but it actually will create and open up more freedom to be able to do better and more work and more impact for your farming efforts. So I'm going to go back to you guys, Prince or Emma, more questions, because I kind of like you to give us some examples, Sonita, of what permaculture is, other than explaining it more. I want to hear examples myself. So I don't know about you guys. You want to hear examples of what she's talking about within an eco village? Tell us what the permaculture looks like. Give us an example of what you've done.
Okay, an example without pictures.
Yeah, we'll get pictures from you. We'll get pictures. We'll take pictures and put it with this. Paint us a picture.
Okay. Yes, I would do my best. Okay, so take for example that that we came into Bafut, and for many years people had been growing ginger. Mm-hmm. And ginger as a product was there, and over 80% of the ginger that was grown was abandoned in the bushes. Yeah, because if you want to sell ginger in the market, I mean, I want to buy ginger, I can only buy a certain quantity, enough for the food, because ginger was mainly used as a spice. So ginger, like salt, is I can use as much as I need. I cannot use more than that. And so therefore, everybody had ginger, and so the market collapses naturally when everybody needs to harvest. And ginger takes 9 months. It's a 9-month plant. And so therefore, when everybody is ready to harvest ginger, then nobody really wants to buy ginger, because ginger market has collapsed. And you would, for example, you would buy in Bafut about a 50-liter container of ginger for like $1. And so therefore, and ginger is heavy, and so we don't have good farm to market routes. So if you were to transport that ginger lying in the farm to the market, it would cost you a lot of money, but you would get there and it would be just laborious, and you will not get the money you require. So many people got frustrated and abandoned the ginger in the bushes, in the farms. And so we had a resource here, and the resource was ginger. But not only ginger, also turmeric, because lots of people grew turmeric. And turmeric is also known in some places as curcumin. And lots of people were growing it, but they didn't really know what it was. And they called it yellow ginger. So when we arrived in Bafut and we saw that there is a luxury, there is some form of privilege in this place, and that privilege is that ginger lying there, but we can do something incredible with it. And so we said, let's do a permaculture structure, financial structure here. And so we identify that we have a resource, which is ginger. And of course, when you sell ginger as a raw material, you get no money, but you need to add value to it. And so therefore, you need to create added value. And so we started a cooperative for ginger farmers. And we started a cooperative with a zero budget. So there was no money. And then all the farmers register, and then we have to regulate the price, the market price, because we have control, of course, of the market. And so every farmer brings the ginger. Every farmer has to process the ginger in a specific way according to the quality control. But then we created a design of how the system would function from farm to delivery of the product. And so the farmers were part of their farming, harvesting, washing, processing, transforming ginger into powder or into ginger tea or into ginger juice, into ginger sweets, into different products of ginger. And we were looking for markets locally, internationally for that ginger product. And in the end, we had a market with Lush Cosmetics, who was happy to buy some of the ginger and the turmeric. However, it was just almost impossible to export stuff out of Cameroon. And so in the end, and then you see, of course, you have even more challenges coming in. In the end, we sold a lot of it to the local market, but we raised a lot of awareness over radio, television, by local people on how can you consume ginger, what are the different medicinal values of ginger, and what type of ways you can use to consume ginger, what kind of mixtures you would use for ginger tea, not only to put it directly, but you can do different things, but also candies that were produced from ginger. So for me, this is an exciting project, but therefore, just growing ginger in itself is something that we would not promote, because this would be a monoculture in it. I mean, it would be like growing palm plantation. So another thing with permaculture is that you have to create a system where it's a supportive system, so plants that support each other. And the belief with the practice is that you have to maximize land. And if we have just a quarter piece of land, a quarter acre or a quarter hectare piece of land, then we do something we call intercropping. And we choose certain products. And ginger, in this sense, becomes a high-level product, a high-value product. And another high-value product could be turmeric, could be moringa, could be any product that stays longer on the land, but could be processed and could be given added value. On the other hand, you have traditional staple crops, and these traditional staple crops are okra, beans, maize, different kinds of things, so that the people are not dying of hunger. Because you cannot grow cash crop, because crop for cash, and forget you have to eat. And so you need this structure on the same piece of land, and you have to create this design. And this is also something in permaculture. So you create the design on how that fits perfectly on a quarter acre piece of land, and you intercrop these traditional staple crops with the high value products, and then you intercrop with trees of high value, for example, Lutania or Acacia, but trees that would produce nitrogen fixing, that would improve the yields of the farm. Even though you only have a short piece, you only have a small plot, and you grow less ginger than normal, but you have more yields because you have a more cooperative system. And you have a richer soil, more nutrients, and then you have more value in the end, because you're not going hungry because you have enough to eat, and you are relaxed because you know that you have something that has higher value for the market. And so this is one of the practices that we did on a very large scale, for so many, I think over 2,000 farmers. And these farmers working on their plots of land, ensuring that they're intercropping trees and traditional staple crops with high value products. And because, I mean, you would harvest maize, for example, after, say, 3 months, but the ginger stays on the land for 9 months. And so the land is not sitting there wasted, because you have higher value also for the land. So this is, of course, one example. But I could give you more examples. Second example is, a second example would be that, of course, you need on a piece of land water management structures. And that water management goes with plant and food production. And permaculture believes in scales of preference. And on scale of preference of water conservation, of course, rainwater is the first. So catch as much rainwater as possible. But this is not what is naturally happening in agriculture in Africa. So it rains usually like 6 months a year for most countries, but this rain just washes stuff off into the ocean. But if everybody would just catch as much rainwater as possible from the roof, from everywhere on the piece of land, and the practice is do not allow water from your piece of land escape. You have to sink it in, improve the aquifers so that in the dry season you still have water on the land. And usually this is not what people understand. But also you have to put in place erosion control mechanisms, either through plants or mechanical control systems, such that the soil stability is very well managed and it's in place for a long time. And that after a long run, if you don't have water on your piece of land, you would probably, after a while, have a little spring source in itself because of how much water you've conserved on the piece of land. However, that this water would go in cycles. Now, so many farmers dig wells, and digging a well and pulling water out of a well it's not, I would never encourage this, because this is taking water from where we want water to go. This is of course taking water from the aquifers, and we need to bring water down. So take the surface water and bring it down, and not take the one down and bring it up and pump it up. This is a reverse mechanism that doesn't really work with climate change that we're currently facing in the world. So first, this we put in place. And then we ensure that food production has enough access to water, because in most cases, when you don't have enough water and you have irrigation systems that don't work, then agriculture also is very, very challenging in most African countries. Of course, I would recommend drip irrigation, but with permaculture, we design a system where the plant is only water fed, and that it rains and it feeds the plant because it has enough. So I create you the scenario. So I dig a pit for a tree, and I put enough compost, for example, and this compost has come from a mixture of rough material and some animal resource, and some of my personal resource, and that personal resource could be my pee, or I have lots of excesses, but also some extra stuff from my kitchen. I bring all of this together, and sometimes we collect lots of waste from the food market, local markets, because there's excessive waste of food sitting there. And we collect all this waste and we create the compost out of it. And when we plant a tree, we bring this compost in, and then we bring a lot of rough material, like rough branches and trees, and we create something like a mesh. And you can also put a bit of sawdust. And what sawdust does, and sawdust is this rough material from when you cut down a tree. And what sawdust does is that it's spongy. It's a sponge that if you squeeze, it holds water for a very long time. So it holds the water in the soil. And if it rains and it's and you have water in the sawdust, and then you have, what happens is that sawdust, seals on the top, but the water is still underneath it. And you can create, tiny little systems like this, but that the tree itself is just being rain fed over time, and it has enough space in the pot where it collects water naturally, and it can feed itself over the dry season.
That's fantastic.
Yes, I can tell you much more complex.
Fruit trees or something like that around your place. That's good. That's good information to know. I think what we used to do also is put little river rocks or little stones in to help the flow of water going in underneath the roots and things like that of small plants, stuff like that. But that's fantastic. That's good to know. We've got a couple of minutes left to have like one or two last questions. Emma or Prince, any questions from you? Comments?
Wow, I think I've really learned a lot in this area. Thank you so much.
I think you
It's
can
as if
get your kids, the kids that you have that are coming into your, to do some of your recreation projects. You could do a little co-op with them to learn some of this that they could take back to their homes and do. There's just there's some nuggets of gold here, I think. Emma, any comments?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sonita, for sharing the practical examples and the benefits of permaculture. I think also, as Madam Mary has said, it would be something that'd be great, since I work with primary school children and also university students. It'd be great to, when I have a session with them, to educate them on permaculture and see if they can actually have a project back from where they come from what they learn with regards to permaculture. Yeah, but thank you for the insights.
Yeah.
So any parting words that you have, Sonita, for anybody who's wanting to kind of get into that or to investigate more about eco-villages? Because I could see how that kind of thing could transform areas that are underprivileged, that don't have a whole lot going on, because a lot of it has to do with just the way they're thinking about things or not thinking about things. Any comments? Final comments from you, Sonita?
Yes. So now I'm starting to work a lot also with refugee camps, because permaculture works really magically with small space, because it's creativity of the design and what you bring into the system. And I would be actually in Kenya, so maybe I could get to see you, Emma. I would be teaching a permaculture design course to, I think, 30 people in Kenya in November. So, and then I hope to go to this huge refugee camp in the north of Kenya and to see how to work with permaculture there. And I would be happy, maybe at some point I could get to meet you, or if you are available, I could bring you to this course. It's completely financed already.
Ooh, I love that. Maybe we
Wow.
can help you with that. Anything you're doing in Nigeria that Prince can help with.
In Nigeria, we have some mushrooms, because we also with permaculture, there's so much possibility with growing mushrooms organically. And of course, Prince, maybe I can connect you with those projects. And also, there is a huge herbal pharmaceutical project in Nigeria. Would be nice. I connect with you about this later.
Okay, we can talk more. I'll connect
Yes.
with you on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So if you want to know more about
entrepreneurship path, so this is good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that the knowledge is there in Africa, the people are there, we're practicing different things. We can always share ideas, experiences, but of course, what is really necessary is that there is, that if there are more people out there who are interested in the work that we're doing, bringing life into soil, into nature, into human fabric, whatever structures that may be, and are willing to support, the development of demonstration sites or youth hubs that are facilitating permaculture, eco-village design, would be amazing to connect with these people. This is my dream, that this would implant itself more and more in Africa.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sonita, for spending some time with us. When we talked before, you were in Germany, I think, and now you're in Portugal. So you're moving around a little bit, that's for sure. And then from Cameroon too. So you're a global girl, that's for sure. I can see how this sort of thing would fix a lot of economic development problems, community by community. It has to be kind of small, and then, create and then recreate as you move along. The value here is not just in the areas that you were talking about. This is something people around the world need to know about and need to practice and, figure out how they fit into something like this. It's not only good for you and for your community, but planet Earth needs this help too. So thank you very much. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Prince, for joining me and helping me with this. And we will, if you're watching this on YouTube, go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com and you will see not only this interview, but also we'll put some information, maybe some pictures that Sonita will send us so that you can have a visual to go with the conversation. And we'll have the LinkedIn connections for everybody here. So thank you very much. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Sonita.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you,
Thank you,
Prince and
Emma.
Emma. It was really wonderful. Thank you.
Bye.